Good Wednesday to you. It's September 18th, 2024, and we've got some weather to talk about. Look at that big swirly boy right there. I want you to look. Have you ever seen such an awesome example of a low pressure system, a mid-latitude cyclone? Look at that. Here's a more up close and personal look at this bad boy on the satellite here. This is a perfect example of the type of storm that we're going to be seeing a lot of as we go deeper into fall. These are the kinds of storms that usher in the winter air eventually into the United States from the north and the west. This one is not bringing in winter air, but some cooler and drier air. And you can see that very clearly here on the latest HRRR model. And the consequences of this very cool dry air clashing up against the very warm moist air out in front of it. It's going to be quite chaotic out there in terms of weather today and tomorrow. I want you to watch that boundary there. This is a very dynamic system here, and you can see there's going to be a surge, especially tomorrow, of some pretty moist air from the Gulf of Mexico lofting up towards Canada right in time for that big comma-shaped storm to slam some cool dry air into it. And then I think tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening, the result is going to be a pretty widespread and maybe even significant severe weather outbreak in portions of Canada all the way down into Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now, everybody else down the rest of this line, there's going to be a chance of some showers and some thunderstorms, but I think that the gradient or the sharpness of the contrast between the cool air and the warm air is going to be most intense up here, and that's where we're going to see the biggest storms. But just look at how cool and how dry things are going to be back here in the Rockies, back towards the Four Corners, into the Southwest. This is going to be one of our most dynamic setups that we've had in a while, where we have two very different weather systems on either side of the country. And as always, the people in the middle end up getting a bunch of rain and storms as a result. Here's a look at what the radar could look like as we go into the future. You can see that big swirling system there is going to try to bring some storms today. I think there's a good chance that we see some hail and some wind in a couple of areas today out here in the central U.S., but it's not going to be anything crazy. The real magic happens tomorrow whenever these storms start to pop up, especially in the afternoon. This is around 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to see some very strong storms in the Minneapolis area and even up here into Canada. I think that you guys are going to be dealing with some big time wind, some hail, and maybe even some tornadoes as a result of this thing. And just look at how widespread the storm coverage becomes as we go into the 9 p.m. time frame. So we're going to be watching these storms well into the overnight period on Thursday into the early morning hours on Friday. But unfortunately, this is as far out as our future radar goes. Storm Prediction Center is obviously watching this as well. Today, we've got a very small, slight risk of severe weather in western portions of Minnesota down into northeastern portions of Nebraska. We've got a slight chance of some wind and hail, a very small chance of some tornadoes. Lincoln, Nebraska, up there towards Sioux Falls, South Dakota. You guys should watch out for an isolated thunder boomer or two today. But tomorrow, this is where I think things get a little bit more interesting. We've got about 5 million people from Duluth back towards Minneapolis that are going to be under the gun for some significant severe weather. In fact, we've got a significant risk of hail tomorrow and a 5% chance of tornadoes. I expect that might even could be increased to a very rare September 10% if some of the model trends continue to go in the way that they're going. Not looking for a tornado outbreak or anything like that, but I would definitely keep an eye on this one if I lived up here. Okay, zooming out and taking a look at the rest of the country. First of all, snow today in Wyoming, and that's not the first time we're going to be talking about snow in this weekly simulation of weather patterns here in the U.S., which is nuts. Can't believe we're already talking about snow. But you can see our mid-latitude cyclone ejecting off into Canada there. By Friday, we're going to be dealing with the leftovers over here in the Great Lakes region. Not sure exactly what that's going to mean in terms of continued severe weather risk, but for the most part, things are going to be quieting down quite a bit this weekend. Not a lot going to be going on at all, in fact, except for maybe as we get later into the day on Saturday, we're going to start to see a new system develop down here, or at least a new area of interest from Colorado over into Missouri as a result of this boundary here coming off of this low pressure system and the warm air that's coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. This is once again just a result of these two air masses that are going to be in place here, warm in the east, cooler in the west. These storms don't necessarily look very intense to me, but they're going to lead to a lot of rainfall. And also, once again, more snow here in Colorado. Look at how much rain and how prolonged we could be dealing with it from portions of Nebraska up into Iowa. By Monday, September 23rd, we're still going to be dealing with rain and storms as a result of that over here. But everybody else is going to be fairly quiet as as we go all the way through the next 240 hours, there's nothing significant to talk about really, other than the vast temperature differences there and the severe weather tomorrow. And of course, like I said, those two air masses being in place is going to lead to people in the middle getting a lot of rain. So the most rain that we're going to see over the next 7 days or so in the United States is going to likely happen in Florida. There's going to be a lot of pop-up thunderstorm activity happening down there. But in second place, we've got portions of Nebraska, Iowa, and even Montana under the gun for maybe a couple of inches of rain. So keep that in mind. But if you were paying attention here, there's something going on down in the Gulf of Mexico on the last couple of frames of the Euro model. What the heck is that? Well, the National Hurricane Center's latest outlook is highlighting two different areas. The first one we've been watching for a while, and it looks like a nothing burger for the most part. It looks like it's going to be a fish storm. Gordon out there, it really didn't do much of anything, and it looks like the remnants of that and anything that sparks as a result of the outflow from that is going to continue to be nothing interesting. However, there is another area of interest popping up down here in the Caribbean to the east of the Yucatan Peninsula that has everybody's attention right now. If you follow any meteorologists or people who cover national weather or tropical weather, you've heard them talk about this. The GFS is picking up on a signal here for a storm, and it could be our next major thing that we're watching. Here's the latest GFS. You can see that we're going to have a couple of big troughs go through the United States, and then around September 25th, September 26th, around that time frame, something starts looking a little organized here in the Gulf of Mexico, and it actually goes right up into the coastal areas. In particular, on this run of the GFS, it shows something trying to make landfall here in the panhandle of Florida around September 26th, but I mean, obviously this is not going to be, that's going to change a million times literally before we get there. The concerning thing about this is nothing's changed as far as the favorability for tropical systems go in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. Things are still very favorable for tropical development. We just haven't had a lot of opportunities this year, thankfully. So even though the GFS isn't showing a superstorm, it's not showing a very strong storm here, just the fact that there's going to be a potential storm in the Gulf as we go into next week is concerning. It's cause for concern, and if you have interests along the coast down here, you need to be paying attention to this because it's very common late in the season like this that we get a surprise storm that sometimes catches people off guard. So we're watching this very closely. I do think that if we see a storm form in the Caribbean and it goes up into the Gulf like this, it will almost certainly be a hurricane. Okay, I don't think that we're going to see anything keeping a storm from becoming anything less than that. So I'm hoping that the signal is off and we end up not seeing any sort of organization at all down here. However, I am getting prepared for potentially dealing with our next tropical system down here in the Gulf of Mexico as we go into late next week. But that's really all I can say about it right now. And of course, as new updates come in, as there's new information, this will be the first place that you hear it. We're probably going to have another video tomorrow and a very, very small chance that we go live. If we do end up getting an upgrade from the Storm Prediction Center to a 10% probability for tornadoes, and especially if that includes Minneapolis, the chances go up quite a bit. However, right now we're just watching it, and we'll have an update video for you tomorrow if there's any major changes. And then the rest of the week into the weekend, there's a chance that we do a video almost every day, depending on if the tropical system upgrades in intensity as far as what we're thinking might happen. So I will see you tomorrow in a video for certain, and then after that, I'll likely see you at some point during the weekend. And then, of course, every Monday, we're going to have a video talking about the general forecast for the week. So make sure you subscribe, turn notifications on, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.